Apple Knocker Radio.
Any buildings that Masons were involved with, whether they're Masonic or not, have them. And yes, if you study the dates, they pretty much all line up pretty close to what we could call, astronomical events or celestial holidays or Sabbaths or whatever, feast days, stuff like that.
Do you, well, I assume this is probably a stupid question, but are those going to be listed and discussed in your book?
Oh, yes. I do a complete study of oh, hey, look how close in proximity this is to the rising or setting of the dog star Sirius, or look how close this is in proximity to the Masonic feast days of St. John the Baptist or St. John the Evangelist, which are obviously Christian feast days as well. But
right.
The feast days of those two St. Johns are the most important Christian feast days to Freemasonry.
That's actually a really interesting thing, and I'm glad we kind of accidentally stumbled into it, because when you talk about a lot of these things, like your book is about specifically looking at occult artifacts, constructions in New York City, a lot of people just associate occult evil, but that you are a Freemason, or at least you were a Freemason. I don't know exactly where things begin and end in those terminologies, but and so this isn't it's not an exploration of evil, it's an exploration of spiritual religious practices as they have been represented in archaeology in New York City. Right? Would you say that's correct?
Correct. Well, the book is primarily, I'd say it's the occult and Masonic art and architecture in New York.
Okay.
And I do a little bit of archaeology, but not so much with this book. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Native American studies and archaeology in another book project that I have coming that we can talk about another time, when I get my ducks lined up on that one a little bit more. But so yeah, I'm going into buildings with art and architecture that have occult themes. So Masonic and other let's say esoteric fraternal organizations and religious, their buildings often are discussed in the book. But corporate buildings and governmental buildings, civic, municipal buildings, and religious structures that have theological and esoteric and mythological themes are also mentioned in the book. So I pretty much run the full gambit of investigating symbolism on the buildings and statuary and murals and mosaics of Gotham City.